I wanted to start by talking about the big story in the Daily Mail right now. It's about my boyfriend Magnus and how he got caught in an uncomfortable situation with Blake Lively during an interview for a simple favor back in 2018. The interview quickly took a turn when Blake, in a rather unexpected move, pushed Magnus to drink Ryan Reynolds' aviation gin, even though it was early in the morning. She kind of hijacked the interview, and Magnus ended up feeling pressure to drink the gin, which made him incredibly uncomfortable. Daily Mail reached out to Magnus for a comment yesterday, and he was honestly really freaked out. He hates getting attention and being put in the middle of things like this. It's hard because he's not the type to seek the spotlight at all. I feel bad for him, but at the same time, I was like, you've got to say something. He just gets so awkward with these situations, though. The article ended up being a huge story, and there were tons of pictures of Magnus and me included. If you see it floating around, you might remember the video we made a few months ago, where Magnus talks about how uncomfortable it was having to drink gin in the morning. I'll link to that video in the description if you want to check it out. On a related note, I saw something pretty funny today. Remember that Forbes interview I posted a few days ago from the Forbes Power Summit Women's Summit? It was from 2022. Well, one of you guys found the interview and sent it to me, which I then talked about here on my channel. It blew up, and then TMZ picked it up, followed by Daily Mail claiming they got access to the video. But that's total BS because you guys were the ones who sent it to me. Now, Forbes has picked up the story themselves, which I thought was hilarious because they were so late to the game. It was their own video, and they just now decided to run with it. The headline reads, "Breaking. Blake Lively admits she needed authors on her films," which she did, but the funny part is, everyone else was ahead of them. The media moves so slowly sometimes, no wonder they're falling behind. Social media is always 2 weeks ahead of traditional outlets. Finally, I wanted to mention that article in the LA Times that came out. They were writing about this story for the first time, but honestly, there wasn't anything new in it. It's just interesting how much slower traditional media is compared to social platforms. Oh, and about that Betty Boop commercial Blake did where she was promoting her gin brand, I have no problem with it in general. If it were anyone else, it would have been fine. But in light of everything that's happened with Magnus, I'm not sure that ad aged too well. It's one of those things where, looking back, it feels a little off.
There's a reason all men love Betty Buzz. Because at Betty Buzz, we don't test on animals. We test on men. That's a good boy. Drink up. Let him know how good it is.
Pretty classic.
The problem I have with this ad is the irony behind it. Blake Lively has been so sensitive about even the slightest things, like when Justin Bieber used the word sexy in It Ends With Us. And I think he was just referring to a hat she was wearing, which was totally blown out of proportion. But then here she is in this commercial with half-naked men, essentially objectifying them. The tagline, "We don't test on animals, we test on men," is honestly degrading, and it feels pretty hypocritical when you consider her stance on other things. It's like the same vibe as what she did to Magnus during their interview, pushing him to drink and saying, it's this sense of pressure and discomfort that she's putting out there, and it just doesn't sit right with me. If she's so sensitive about certain things, why is she participating in ads that kind of push those same boundaries?
Come on, just shoot it. Just shoot it. The interview will be so much more interesting. Come on, down it.
Here we go.
Come on. Yeah.
So about the ad again, I honestly don't think it's aged very well. What really bothers me is how Blake Lively portrays herself as sensitive to certain issues, yet here she is in a commercial with half-naked men, essentially objectifying them. The tagline, "We don't test on animals, we test on men," is just cringe-worthy. It feels hypocritical, especially when you consider how upset she's gotten over much less. Like when Justin Bieber used the word sexy in It Ends With Us, which was such a small, harmless comment. It just doesn't make sense. And it gets worse when you think about how she pressured Magnus during that interview to drink gin. It's this kind of inconsiderate behavior, and it makes me wonder if she had an intimacy coordinator on set when filming those ads to protect the guys involved. That's something we should definitely find out.